58 years on this earth, 22 of them carrying a badge. And the moment that changed everything didn't happen in an alley or an interview room. It happened at a steakhouse in Marietta, Georgia, over a birthday dinner I paid for, while a man I never trusted grabbed my daughter's hair across the table, and his mother cheered like it was a sporting event. My name is Frank Callow, retired Atlanta PD, homicide, 22 years. I have sat across from men who did unspeakable things and kept my voice level and my hands steady, because that's what the job demanded. So understand what it cost me to sit still in that booth. Everything. It cost me everything. My daughter Katie is 31. Her mother's eyes, my stubbornness. 4 years ago, she married Brad Norris in a ceremony that cost more than my first 2 cars combined. I walked her down the aisle. I meant every word of the toast. Brad is 34, manages a logistics team at Hartwell Distribution out of Marietta, drives a truck too big for a man who's never hauled anything in it, a handshake built to impress, and eyes that never quite commit to whatever his mouth is saying. First time I met him, I thought, this one practices his smile. I didn't say it out loud. I was being generous. That's a habit I need to work on. His mother, Donna Norris, 63, runs a licensed daycare out of her home in Smyrna. Sunshine Steps, 18 kids between 2 and 5, loud in a way people mistake for warmth, opinionated in a way people mistake for wisdom. She'd been inserting herself into Katie and Brad's marriage since roughly the second week of their honeymoon. Saturday, October 4th, 7:30 p.m., Carver's Steakhouse on Johnson Ferry Road. Katie's 31st birthday. I made the reservation. I ordered the appetizers. I was 2 glasses into a decent Cabernet when the argument started. Quiet. The way arguments get between 2 people who've had this exact fight before, and both already know how it ends. Something about Katie spending the previous weekend at my house, helping me sort through her mother's things. Brad had opinions about that. I watched the way 22 years of detective work wires you to watch. Katie's shoulders came in. Brad's jaw tightened. And Donna watched the whole thing with an expression I can only call interested. This is where everything turns. Brad reached across the table, not for her hand, not for the breadbasket. He grabbed a fistful of Katie's hair at the base of her neck and yanked, hard enough that her head snapped back, hard enough that she made a sound, hard enough that 3 people at the next table turned to look. Katie's eyes filled instantly. She didn't cry out. She just went still, the way something goes still after it's been caught. Donna leaned back, crossed her arms, looked at her son with actual approval, and said, "That's how it's done. She needs to learn her place." 45 people in that restaurant, at least 15 with a clear sightline to our table. Don't react. Think. Every instinct built over 2 decades of standing between people and the worst versions of themselves wanted my hands on Brad Norris. I won't pretend I was calm. I was the opposite of calm. But here's what homicide work teaches you. The angriest response in a critical moment is almost never the most effective one. The guilty man who stays composed walks out of the interview room. The innocent one who screams gets charged. Brad wasn't going to benefit from my rage. My hand moved, not toward Brad, into my jacket pocket. Phone out, camera open, record pressed. I let it sit on the table, screen toward them, casual as a water glass, and let it run 40 seconds. Brad's face, Katie's tears, Donna's smile, all of it, clean, in the warm light of Carver's Steakhouse. Then I turned the phone face down, folded my napkin, and said, "Check, please." Same voice I used to use right before an arrest, calm until the cuffs are on. "We haven't even gotten our entrees," Brad said. "Check, please." I paid for everything, including the ribeye that never came. I stood, looked at my daughter. "Get your coat, baby." She looked at Brad, at Donna, at me, and something in my face made her pick up her coat. "Wait, you can't just—" "Brad." I looked at him for the first time since it started. No expression. Interview room face. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." I walked my daughter out into the parking lot. She was shaking. I wasn't. We sat in my truck for 11 minutes before she spoke. "Dad, don't do anything. Already did something." "What did you do?" "I recorded it." Long pause. "Has he done that before?" She looked out the window. "Not like that. Not in public." "Not in public." The specific qualifier of someone who's been sorting the acceptable from the unacceptable for so long she doesn't remember what normal feels like. "How long, Katie?" She finally said it. "About a year and a half. Mostly loud, mostly words." The hair. That had happened maybe 5 times, and she'd never told me, because she knew exactly what I'd do, and she'd been protecting him, or protecting me, or protecting some version of the marriage she still believed she could save. I put my hand over hers. "Here's what happens now. You're coming home with me tonight. Tomorrow I make some calls. You don't have to do anything yet. Just let me work." "He grabbed your hair in front of 40 people, I said. "And his mother told you to learn your place. It's already gotten there." She nodded, the nod of a woman who'd been exhausted for 18 months and only just let herself admit it. At my kitchen table that night, I watched the video 4 times to be sure I had what I thought I had. I did. Then I made 2 calls. First, Ray Tillman, my partner for 11 of my 22 years, now doing security consulting in Sandy Springs. He picked up on the second ring, because Ray never lets a call go to voicemail. "I've got video of Brad Norris assaulting Katie tonight, witnessed by the whole room." "How bad?" "Hair pull. Visible. Her reactions on camera." "You file a report yet?" "Tomorrow. Wanted to call you first." "Good. Who's your family law guy?" "Steve Morrow, Buckhead." "Call him before 9. He needs to know before Brad gets legal advice of his own." Then, quieter. "You didn't touch him?" "Didn't need to." "Good. Keep it that way." Second call went to Steve Morrow's emergency line. 12 years I'd known him, since a domestic case in 2012 where my evidence helped secure his client's protection. Thorough. Careful. Doesn't surprise easy. "I have video evidence of assault on my daughter. Multiple witnesses. The mother-in-law's on camera encouraging it." Pause. "What restaurant?" "Carver's, Johnson Ferry." "They have cameras?" "They do. 8 a.m. tomorrow, my office." I sat at that table a long time, listening to Katie breathe under her mother's throw blanket in the next room. I didn't know yet how much work that video was about to do. I didn't know Donna's smile on camera was about to cost her 30 years of building something. And I didn't know Brad Norris, confident, untouchable in that booth, was already 3 days from the worst week of his professional life. A detective doesn't solve a case by being the loudest person in the room. You build it, fact by fact, document by document, until the other side has nowhere left to go. Sunday morning, Steve's office. He'd already confirmed Carver's had a full camera system, and that Georgia's a one-party consent state. My video was fully admissible. He watched it twice. On the second pass, he froze on Donna's face at the exact moment she said her line, and looked at me over his glasses. "Frank, this is a gift. 20 years I've been doing this. I've never had the mother-in-law on video encouraging the assault." We built the plan on the spot. Emergency protective order, filed that day through the duty judge, criminal referral to Cobb County PD, and then Steve asked about Brad's employer, Hartwell Distribution, and whether they had a conduct clause for domestic violence convictions. Most mid-size logistics companies did. He had an HR consulting contact who could find out fast. Then he asked about Donna's daycare. Licensed, 18 kids, ages 2 to 5. "Frank, do you understand what the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning does with a video of a licensed provider encouraging domestic violence on camera? That's a mandatory review. They'll open a fitness investigation. Every parent gets notified." I told him to build it, all of it. "How's Katie?" he asked. "Does she want to proceed?" "She wants to protect the marriage." That's common. I worked domestic cases for 6 years before homicide. I know every version of this. What I also know is a year and a half of documented incidents, plus this video, plus the protective order, is going to give her options she doesn't think she has right now. I'm not forcing her hand. I'm building her a door. That afternoon, I filed the assault report at Cobb County PD with a young officer named Chris Wade, careful and thorough, who watched the video twice and called it strong. The public setting, the witnesses, the footage. He'd request Carver's security tape and be in touch by Tuesday. Monday morning, I made Katie breakfast. Eggs, toast, the orange juice she's liked since she was 7, and let her talk. About the first time, about how each incident, taken alone, had seemed survivable. She showed me 14 months of texts she'd never deleted, apologies that were actually instructions, affection that was actually surveillance. I love you, but you made me. Messages that were really just the architecture of blame. I photographed every screen. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, no accusation in it. Because I knew what you'd do. Look at what I did instead, I said. I took out my phone, and now I'm building. But Katie, none of it matters if you go back to him. I can build the door. I can't make you walk through it. She was quiet a long time. Mom would have hated him, she finally said. Your mother had excellent instincts. Wednesday, October 8th, 4 days after the restaurant. 3 things happened in order. First, Steve called at 9. The emergency protective order had been granted. Brad served at his office at 8:45, and according to the process server, his face looked like someone had switched off the light behind it. Good. Second, Officer Wade called at 10:30. Carver's security footage corroborated my video from a second angle. Cobb County issued a warrant for misdemeanor battery. Brad turned himself in by noon, posted bail, was out by 2. The charge was on his record. Third, at 3:15, a licensing investigator with the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning left a voicemail. A complaint referral had come in regarding Donna Norris and Sunshine Steps. They were opening a fitness review. I sat with my coffee and thought about Donna's crossed arms, her smile. That's how it's done. She needs to learn her place. 18 families in Smyrna were about to get a letter. The most satisfying moment in any case isn't the arrest. It's the moment the other side realizes the game ended 3 moves ago and they're the last to know. Brad had that moment the following Thursday, placed on administrative leave from Hartwell pending HR review. Steve's contact hadn't threatened anyone, just notified Hartwell's legal department that an employee had been arrested for battery with video evidence, before it hit local news. Hartwell's conduct policy had exactly the clause Steve predicted. Brad was escorted out by 9 a.m. He called Donna from the parking lot. I know because he accidentally forwarded an attorney email to Katie's old address, the one he'd forgotten she still checked. People under pressure make small, catastrophic mistakes. Katie drove it over herself. 4 days earlier, she'd been shaking in a parking lot. Now she had the look of someone handed proof of everything she'd suspected. He's blaming me, she said. His attorney's calling it a coordinated campaign. That's us. Is that legal? What you did with his job and Donna's daycare? I reported a crime. I gave evidence to the relevant licensing authority. I hired an attorney to protect your rights. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Donna had called her too. Told her to get her father under control. Then laughed and said she was lucky Brad loved her as much as he did. What did you say back? I asked. I hung up. Then I drove here. The next 2 weeks moved the way a well-built case moves. Steady, each piece locking into the next. Steve filed for divorce on Katie's behalf October 13th. Irreconcilable differences, documented domestic violence, active protective order. Brad's attorney fired back an aggressive counter within days, the legal equivalent of a man puffing his chest because he has nothing else. Then Steve sent the full documentation package, the video, the arrest record, the 14 months of dated, described incidents Katie and I built together over 3 mornings at my kitchen table, including 2 bruises she'd photographed and never shown a soul. After that, Brad's attorney went quiet. I've heard that particular silence before. It's the sound of a legal strategy being completely reconsidered. Donna's review ran on its own clock. Investigators interviewed her, reviewed the video, interviewed staff, confirmed the incident with Carver's. On October 22nd, 18 days after that dinner, letters went out to all 18 families at Sunshine Steps, notifying them of an active licensing fitness review. One parent called the number on the letter, then posted about it in a Smyrna Facebook group. By the next morning, 11 of 18 families had pulled their kids pending the outcome. Sunshine Steps was down to 7 children within a week. Donna called Katie 3 more times. Katie let them go to voicemail. The last one ran long, said, "Your father." 11 times, and never once said, "I'm sorry." Katie played it once and deleted it. Monday, October 27th, 23 days after the dinner, Brad accepted the settlement. Uncontested divorce, assets split per Georgia law, permanent restraining order replacing the emergency one. No kids, no custody fight. Brad kept his half of the joint accounts and the furniture he brought into the marriage. Katie kept the condo. The rest, and her freedom, worth considerably more than the furniture. His own attorney, after reviewing everything Steve had assembled, had clearly told him contesting this in a Georgia courtroom was a losing bet. Brad signed without a fight. Steve called the moment the counter-signatures came through. Done. Filed. It's over, Frank. How's Hartwell? He resigned before they finished the termination process. Same outcome, different paperwork. Donna? No set timeline on the investigation, but losing 11 families in a week. That's part of the record now. Good. Katie came by that afternoon with a bottle of wine and a small plant for my kitchen windowsill. Something living, she said, since the kitchen needed it. Is it really done? She asked. Filed, signed, permanent. He's no longer your legal concern. How do you feel? I asked her. She thought about it honestly, the way she always does. Tired, sad, a little scared about what's next. A pause. And relieved, like I've been carrying something for a year and a half, and finally put it down. We sat 2 hours over that wine, talking about nothing important. Her job, Thanksgiving at her new place, the throw blanket she wanted to keep, which was fine with me. At some point she looked at me and asked why I hadn't gone back into that restaurant. I could have, I didn't, because hitting Brad Norris would have felt good for about 45 seconds, and then I'd have been arrested, and the story would have become about me instead of her, and Brad walks. A retired cop's battery charge, or video evidence of assault. One of those helps my daughter. I picked up my phone instead of my fists, I told her, because the phone was going to do more damage than my fists ever could. That's not patience, she said. That's math. To doing the math, she said, raising her glass. To doing the math. By the end of October, Brad was unemployed, living back at his mother's house in Smyrna. Donna's daycare had 7 children left and an open state investigation. Steve's paralegal sent the finalized decree on Halloween with a note that said simply, clean. I put it in the filing cabinet, between Katie's birth certificate and her college diploma. Everything that matters goes in the same place. Then I went and watered the plant on the windowsill. It's doing well, for the record. Ruth always said I had no business keeping anything alive. Turns out, I just needed something worth keeping.